The morning Iris turned 17, I found her standing in the garden at dawn, barefoot in the frost, staring at nothing I could see. She had not heard me open the kitchen door. She stood perfectly still, her breath visible in the cold air, her hands loose at her sides. I called her name twice before she turned, and when she did, there was something in her expression I had been trying to name for years. Not sadness, not distance. Something older than both. "I was listening," she said, though there was no sound but the wind through the hedgerow. I brought her tea. She thanked me with the formality she had developed somewhere around age 12. When she stopped being the child who climbed into my lap, and became the stranger who shared my house. We sat on the cold stone bench my husband had laid the summer before he left, and I watched her wrap both hands around the mug the way someone might hold something precious they were about to lose. "What were you listening to?" I asked. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. The quiet between things. The space where people forget to lie. I should have been worried. Most mothers would have been. Instead, I felt something click into place. A recognition I had been resisting since the day her primary school teacher called me in to say that Iris did not play with the other children. She watched them instead with an intensity that made the teacher uncomfortable. "It is as though she is studying them," Mrs. Patterson had said, her hands folded on the desk between us. "As though they are specimens rather than playmates." I had defended Iris then. Introvert, I had said. Sensitive, needs time to warm up. All the comfortable words mothers use when their daughters do not fit the expected patterns. But I had known, even as I said them, that they were inadequate. Iris was not shy. Iris was not warming up. Iris was something else entirely, and I had spent 5 years pretending otherwise. "Your father called last night," I said, "because sometimes the ordinary is easier than the truth. He wants to take you to Edinburgh for your birthday for a few days. You loved Edinburgh when you were small." "I know," Iris said. "I heard you talking to him." "But you were in your room," I said, frowning. "The walls are quite thick. How did you manage to hear us from upstairs?" "I do not need to hear the words to know what is being said." She sipped her tea, her gaze fixed on the bare trees at the garden's edge. "He wants me to forgive him for leaving. He wants to be absolved, without having earned it. He believes that enough time has passed, that I should forget the things he said to you, the nights you cried after you thought I was asleep." My throat closed. "Iris, I am not angry with him," she continued, her voice quiet, almost clinical. "I understand him better than he understands himself. He left because he could not bear the weight of being seen clearly. You saw through his performances, I saw through them. He needed people who would believe the version of himself he preferred, so he found them." She was 17. She spoke like someone who had lived centuries. "Will you go?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Because refusing would hurt you more than going would cost me. Because you still love him in the way people love ghosts. Because 3 days of performance is a small price for your peace." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she did not have to protect me, that she was still a child, that these were not her burdens to carry, that Iris had never been a child, not in the way other children were. She had been born watchful, born knowing, and I had spent 17 years trying to fit her into frameworks that could not contain her. "You do that often," I said carefully. "Calculate the cost of things, decide what you can afford to give." "Everyone does," Iris said. "I simply do it consciously." A robin landed on the frost-stiffened grass, pecked once, and then flew away. Iris watched it go, her expression unchanged. "Do you have friends at school?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "I have people who believe they are my friends." She set her mug down on the bench between us. "There is Maya, who talks to me about her boyfriend troubles because I listen without judgment and offer a perspective she finds helpful. There is James, who copies my chemistry notes and tells me about the science fiction novels he thinks I will enjoy. And Claire, who invites me to parties I never go to, but appreciates that I decline politely and never make her feel foolish for asking." "But you are not close to them." "I am as close as I choose to be." She met my eyes, and for a moment I saw something I recognized from my own reflection in difficult years. A kind of loneliness that has made peace with itself. They do not know me, Mum. They know the version I show them. The one that is safe for them to see. Why safe? Because the truth would frighten them. She picked up her mug again, turned it in her hands. If they knew how clearly I see them, how much I understand their motives and their shadows, they would feel exposed. Vulnerable. They would resent me for it. Or worse, they would depend on me to solve their lives for them. So I show them the parts that are useful without showing them the unsettling parts. I thought about the mother I had tried to be. Patient. Understanding. Present. I thought about all the times I had interpreted Iris's silences as contentment, her solitude as preference, her careful boundaries as healthy independence. I thought about the ways I had congratulated myself for raising a daughter who did not seem to need me the way other daughters needed their mothers. Then a thought struck me. Are you lonely? I asked. She considered this for longer than I expected. The frost was melting now where the sun touched it, turning the grass dark and wet. She paused for a moment. I don't know if lonely is the right word, she said finally. I am alone most of the time, but I choose that. I prefer it. When I am with people, I have to manage them. Their emotions, their expectations, their need to be seen in particular ways. It is exhausting. When I am alone, I can simply be. But surely there is someone, I pressed. Someone who sees you. Really sees you. You see me, she said. Or you are beginning to. That is why you brought me tea this morning instead of telling me to come inside, so that I wouldn't catch a cold. That is why you are asking these questions instead of pretending everything is normal. My chest ached. When did you become so wise? I have always been this way. You were just not ready to recognize it. She stood, brushing frost from her nightie. There is something I want to show you. Wait here. She disappeared into the house, moving with the eerie quiet she had perfected, that way of walking that made her presence easily forgotten, even when she was in the room. I sat alone in the cold morning light, wondering when my daughter had learned to read me so completely, when she had developed this capacity to perceive things I tried to hide, even from myself. She returned, carrying a small wooden box I had never seen before, worn at the edges, the latch tarnished with age. I found this in the attic last year, she said, sitting beside me again. It was in amongst Nan's stuff in the box you told me not to open because it was full of difficult memories. Iris. It came out quieter than I intended, not anger but something more complicated. Hurt that she had crossed the boundary, relief that someone finally knew, fear of what she might have read in those pages. I needed to know where I came from. She opened the box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, written in my mother's precise hand. She wrote to someone named Catherine, a friend from university. They are remarkable, Mum. She saw people the way I see them. She understood things others did not. She felt what I feel. I stared at the letters, my heart hammering. I had not thought about Catherine in years. Had not thought about the way my mother had grieved when Catherine died young. The way she had withdrawn afterwards into a kind of permanent solitude that I had interpreted as coldness, but which might have been something else entirely. Your Nan was difficult, I said weakly. Nan was like me, Iris corrected. And you were afraid I would become her. That is why you have been so careful with me. Why you've encouraged me to be social, to make friends, to engage with the world. You thought if you kept me connected I would not disappear the way she did. Did it work? I asked, my voice breaking. No, she said gently, but that is not your fault. I was always going to be this. The question was whether I would be this alone and misunderstood, or whether I would be this with someone who could accept it. She handed me one of the letters. I unfolded it with shaking hands. My mother's writing filled the page, dense and thoughtful, describing a party she had attended, where she had watched people interact, and seen the layers beneath their performances, the shadow motives and unspoken hierarchies. It could have been Iris writing. The cadence, the clarity, the uncomfortable precision of observation. She was not cold, Iris said. She was protecting herself. And she was protecting you from having to carry what she carried, the weight of seeing clearly. And you? I asked. Are you protecting me? I have been, she admitted. But I think you are ready now. I think you have always been braver than Nan gave you credit for. The sun had fully risen, burning off the last of the frost. Somewhere in the hedgerow, a blackbird was singing, and I thought about all the mornings I had found Iris in strange places, standing in doorways listening to rain, sitting in darkened rooms watching shadows move across walls, perched on the garden wall at twilight, counting stars. I had thought she was escaping. I understood now she was attending. What do you need from me? I asked. Permission to stop pretending. She took my hand, her fingers cold from the morning air. And trust that I know myself better than the books you have been reading about teenagers. Better than the articles about how to connect with introverted daughters. Better than the therapist you almost called 3 times last month. I laughed despite myself, despite the tears on my face. How did you know about the therapist? I saw the number on your phone. I recognized the practice from the website you left open on the computer. She squeezed my hand. You are a good mother. You worry because you care. But I do not need fixing. I need to be trusted with my own strangeness. You are not strange, I said automatically. I am though. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. I am strange and solitary, and I see things others miss. And I am comfortable with human darkness in ways that would disturb most people. I release relationships that do not serve me. I influence situations without being seen. I have built my own ethics from observation rather than adoption. And I am content with all of this. You sound like you have been reading philosophy. I have been reading Jung, she said. And Nietzsche, and mythology. I have been trying to understand the archetype I fit, the pattern I am part of. I think I have found it. Or it has found me. And what is it? She looked at me with those old eyes. Someone who walks between worlds. Someone who sees shadow and does not flinch. Someone who is complete alone because they have learned to integrate everything they are, even the parts others would reject. I thought about my mother, sitting alone in her study for hours, writing letters to a dead friend. I thought about the distance I had interpreted as rejection, the silence I had experienced as abandonment. I thought about how I had vowed to be different, to be warmer, to be more available. And I thought about how Iris, despite all my efforts, had become exactly what she was always meant to become. What if I cannot fully understand you? I asked. You do not have to understand me completely, she said. You just have to accept that I understand myself. That is more than most people ever get. The box of letters sat between us on the cold stone bench, a bridge between 3 generations of women who had learned to see too clearly, and had each found different ways to survive the sight. Iris picked up her mug, finished the last of her tea, stood and stretched in the morning sun. Thank you for the tea, she said, and for not trying to fix me. She walked back toward the house, her nightgown trailing through the wet grass, leaving footprints that would disappear as soon as the earth dried. I sat alone with my mother's letters, reading words written 40 years ago that could have been written yesterday, understanding finally that some patterns run deeper than parenting, deeper than choice, and deeper than fear. Inside the house, I heard Iris moving through her morning routine, the quiet efficiency of someone who needs no audience. I gathered the letters, returned them to their box, and followed my daughter inside to make breakfast for a stranger I was only beginning to know, a stranger who had been living in my house for 17 years, patient and watchful, waiting for the morning I would finally be ready to see her as she actually was.